Sinead. I work delivering these sort of programs into schools. So we do secondary schools, we have a Heading for a Healthy Relationship program, but we also have a program that we also deliver to the primary schools. So part of my job is to go around and deliver preventative programs, and also I work in Refuge, the Refuge in Newry, and I'm a floating support officer there. And Roisin helps me with the schools, and she's also one of our childcare workers, so she deals with a lot of the children as well. So we work for Women's Aid Armagh Down. Hands up if you've ever heard of Women's Aid. Is this because of your course work?
I think so.
Okay, so Women's Aid Armagh Down, we have 3 floating support offices. We have one in Newry, Armagh and Portadown, and we have a refuge based in Newry as well. And that's 11 bedrooms, and we have 25 bed spaces. So that's for women and their children so that they can come. We also do outreach in South Armagh, Kilkeel, Banbridge, and Kirkgavin, Ridgermore. So we cover quite a lot. We cover quite a big area. So there's 11 women's aid groups throughout Northern Ireland that help deal with or help women and their children affected by domestic abuse. So the program that we're going to show you today is part of the Heading for a Healthy Relationship program. I know you're obviously doing coursework, so we're going to tailor it a wee bit. So we're going to skip through quite a lot of the slides and just get to the domestic abuse part and what's healthy and unhealthy in certain relationships. And then if you have any questions and if there's anything we can help you for your coursework, is that okay? So Women's Aid, what is Women's Aid? Women's Aid is the leading voluntary organisation in Northern Ireland that helps tackle domestic abuse and supports both women and their children. And the schools, the preventative programs we run out as well is a good way for us to get into schools and try and help people that maybe aren't able to seek support. So this is just kind of saying what we've already talked about, what areas we cover. Let's get through this. So this is something we do in schools where we talk about everybody has a Bill of Rights, and you know a lot of your human rights. So your right to feel safe, your right to have your own opinion, your right to education. So they've actually looked at domestic abuse isn't protecting some people's human rights. So the fact that if they're being imprisoned or if they're not being treated in a safe way, then it actually goes against some of their human rights. So we'll talk a wee bit more about that later. So we look at it from the perspective, the program we run in schools, we look at thoughts, feelings and behaviours quite a lot, and how we can change some of our thoughts to be more positive. So we're going to skip past quite a bit of this. Does everybody know what written rules and unwritten rules are and where they come from? So some of the unwritten rules that we have in our society are kind of ingrained in us from we're no age. So primary socialisation, your family takes on the rules where they start to teach you how to act within society, and then when you enter into schooling systems that takes on the rest of it. So school, media, I think what else? Took a bit of a mind freeze. There's quite a few different other secondary socialisation processes and organisations that would help kind of the unwritten rules, so how we act within society, what's deemed acceptable and non-acceptable. Probably should have cut a lot of this, sorry. So it's just to give you an idea of some of the unwritten rules for girls and boys. Boys shouldn't be too emotional, girls can't read maps, and how that can create limiting beliefs later on in life. The main important part that we would say to everybody is it is important that you talk to people. So we're going to explain how to build a support network towards the end. But it is very important, the benefits of support network, and to be able to keep that support open, so you have people to go and talk to, because we all have different people we talk to if there's different things wrong. So I might talk to Roisin for something else, I might talk to my mum for some other problem. So it's important that you do have at least 5 people that you can talk to. We would look at your chatterbox and motivators, so we're going to do a wee exercise first. Can everybody think of 5 things that they like about themselves?
Just want to write them down, guys, and back of the forms. Yeah, so write down your 5 things.
If you are finding it hard, we'll give everybody a minute to do this. If you are finding it hard, try and talk to your friends beside you. Sometimes it's easier for your friends to tell you things you like about yourself than it is for you to pick out things you like about yourself. What are your qualities? Are you caring? Are you good at helping people? Are you good at maths or science? Is there subjects you're good at? Do you like the way your hair is? So it's anything that you like about yourself. It is important that we're able to say things that we like about ourselves. We'll talk a wee bit more about this in a wee minute. So has everybody got 5? Has anybody got 5? Anybody got 4? 3? 2? Has everybody got something on the page? Yeah. Has everybody got something on the page? Yeah. It is important though, and even if you want to take this exercise home, and think of 5 things that you like about yourself, because it's very important that we're able to say the things that we like about ourselves, because that builds our self-confidence, builds our self-esteem, it kind of recreates our core values about ourselves and what we feel as people. So hands up if you've got 5 things. Hands up if you have 4. 3. Great. 2. 1. Has anybody got none? Great. For anyone who doesn't have 5, can you try and build it up to 5? And even take it as a wee personal exercise to do at home. So if we flip it around to the other side, can everybody think of 5 things that they don't like about themselves? So it's actually quite a good way quote. Your body doesn't need to change, but your thoughts about it do. So it goes back into thoughts, feelings and behaviours, and how our thoughts affect our feelings and then in turn affect our behaviours. Is anybody finished? Now, is anybody hands up if you've got 5 things? Hands up if you have 4. 3, 2, 1. Has anybody got none? Okay, this is an exercise that I'm not going to tell you to do at home. But what list was easier to write? The ones you like about yourself or the ones you don't like? The ones you don't like. Okay, why do we think that is? Yeah. Why do we think it's easier to pick the things we don't like?
See the stuff you don't like more than you see the stuff you
Yeah, very good. Part of it as well is if I went round and told you all, I'm so caring, I'm so good at this and so good at that, everybody would think that you have a big head about yourself or go and look at her ego running away with herself. So society judges us as well if we pick out the things that we do like and we're boasting about them. That's why we're trying to change it. It's important that we're picking out the stuff and focusing on the things that we're good at and letting go of the things that we're not so good at or that we can change, and not beating yourself up about them. So we call the things, have you ever experienced the 2 little voices in your head? The one that tells you that you can do something and the one that tells you that you're not smart enough to do something? Yeah? So we would say that the negative voice in your head is referred to as a chatterbox. So what the chatterbox does is it's the one in the background telling you you're not good enough at this or you're not good enough at that. So it sabotages your efforts for any improvements. It sneers at any achievements you make. It reinforces the negative things about yourself, what you already think about yourself. And it constantly finds faults in everything you do. So, sorry. So we all do this, and it is something that's kind of ingrained into our society at the minute, of we kind of play on the negatives more than the positive. So the way it's about recognising how the negatives is actually making you feel. So it might make you feel upset and angry at yourself, and might make you start doubting and questioning yourself. Like if you lower self-esteem and not feel as good about yourself, you mightn't want to, and that would have a knock-on effect. You mightn't want to go and join new groups. You might want to exclude yourself or isolate yourself away from certain people. So how to get rid of it, which is an important part. So talk to somebody is very important. Notice what it's doing, recognise how it's making you feel. Try to ignore it, because we all have things we don't like about ourselves, and we can change most of them. Sometimes it's a matter of just changing our thoughts, and your feelings and your actions towards that thought will change in itself. And then the other big thing is, think of what you would say to a friend who was saying the exact same thing about themselves. So if I was saying about myself, God, I'm really stupid, I'd never be able to pass that exam. And then I'm looking at my friend going, Fred, if she said that to me, I could give her good advice and go, don't be so silly, you're really good at this, and you have other strengths, and start teasing them out a wee bit. But it's about trying to bring that into ourselves. So it's okay to be proud of what you're good at, and it's okay to be strong. So the motivator, on the other hand, is the positive stuff you say about yourself. So it's the one telling you to go forward, and it's the one saying, if you make a mistake, it's okay, you can do better next time. Pushes you to make new limits, acknowledges when you've done well. So how might this make you feel? So if you're looking at how the chatterbox is making you feel, how's the positives making you feel? I think it's going to motivate you, make you want to do better, and even if you do maybe fail in the exam, then you'll do better next time, maybe work a wee bit harder. There is a point to this, so it does tie in a wee bit to unwritten rules and some of the behaviour that we've started learning from a young age. So how it might make you feel. So obviously it's going to make you feel good about yourself, it's going to make you want to try new things and work a bit harder. It's support you in your decisions and make you feel proud of any achievements that you've done. So how to encourage it is a big thing. So notice it and how it makes you feel. So it is about trying to keep positive with it as well. So recognise how it's making you think about it. Believe and listen to it, which is a big thing. And it's actually a quite hard step to take, is to believe positive things about yourself and to continue to think positively about yourself. So one of the Henry Ford quotes is, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Does anybody agree with this quote? Yeah. It's quite a powerful quote, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later too. So different relationships. So we're constantly in relationships throughout our entire lives. So we're in relationships. Has anybody had relationships in primary school with some friends back then that you don't have now? So we constantly have a cycle of relationships we go through, and we form different relationships with different people all the time. So we're constantly in relationships. I know when you say relationship, everybody assumes it's a dating relationship. That's not necessarily true. So we've got just kind of a brief explanation of some of the relationships we form. So anything from teachers to classmates to principals to youth leaders and family members. So these are all different people. We are constantly in relationships, and all different relationships make different needs that we have. So some of the needs that are met in relationships. So it might be love, pleasure, trust, companionship, someone even just to talk to, someone to feel intimate with, and someone to support and respect you. Respect is quite a big thing in relationships. We're going to look at what is healthy and unhealthy in certain relationships before we dive into domestic abuse. So some of the advantages and disadvantages of any relationship, and it is important to try and recognise both the advantages and disadvantages and how they are impacting on you. So it might be shared status with peers, or shared interest, might be love or caring. Some of the disadvantages we'll look at a little bit more later. So jealousy, limited space, limited time alone, limited privacy. These are all really big issues that mightn't seem so big at the start. Especially when in new relationships, when you're starting, it's all very exciting. So once it settles in, it's about recognising, right, okay, is this healthy? So it's about picking out what the healthy and unhealthy signs are and noticing if there is any potential signs for it to turn unhealthy. So going back to the exercise with the chatterbox and motivator, there's certain people that some of the relationships that we form can actually manipulate your chatterbox or motivator. So they might manipulate the negative things that you think about yourself and start teasing in on them and telling you, right, okay, so if one of my insecurities was maybe I'm not good at maths, so then maybe start a relationship that I form, maybe start kind of putting me down about that a wee bit and telling me I'm really not good at that, or why would I even try to do that? So it's not making me want to better myself. It also kind of reinforces my limiting beliefs that I'm not good at maths and I should never try. So it's about noticing that as well. There is certain relationships that can manipulate your chatterbox. Then on the other hand, there's also relationships that motivate you. So they might be telling you, oh look, it's okay, you failed that exam, don't worry about it, everything's going to be fine next time. So it is about recognising and picking out those relationships and noticing how they're helping and how they're making you feel. But if someone's constantly putting you down and manipulating your negative thoughts about yourself, it is the sign of an unhealthy relationship, and it can lead into dating or domestic abuse later on. So it can be one of the early warning signs. So again, with Abraham, I know I've talked a little bit about thoughts, feelings and behaviours. So your thoughts are feelings that you say in your head, but don't actually speak them out loud. And that affects your feelings. So your feelings is obviously your emotions, how you're feeling, which can impact on your actions and behaviours. So say if my thought was, it's a Friday night, I'm going to go to the cinema with my friends. Oh wait, no, I don't look good, I don't feel good. So that's affecting my feelings. So it's giving me lower self-confidence. I'm probably not feeling good about myself. I'm probably feeling angry. And then in turn, I might actually want to go to the cinema. So I might phone my friends and say, actually, I don't feel well today, and kind of bail out in it. So it's about noticing how your thoughts, feelings, and behaviours interlink, and recognising, right, okay, this is my thought is, right, I don't feel good or I don't look good. So it's about changing that, right, okay, maybe I'm not the ideal shape at the minute, but that doesn't mean that I can't change it. So it's about putting positives behind it, and don't be harsh on yourself for the thoughts that you have about yourself, but look at it from a positive, right, okay, if things aren't ideal at the minute, how can we change them? And work on it from that way. So with everything, we have rights, choices and responsibilities. So if you're right to be safe, and that is one of your basic human rights, is to be safe, to be able to be safe. So one of your choices could be to stay or leave an unhealthy relationship. So you have that choice, and it's always about choice. But your responsibility might be to allow other people to feel safe with you. So it is about recognising with everything that we do, there's always a right, choice and a responsibility attached to it. It's about recognising those as well, so you can keep yourself safe and other people can be safe with you. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit more into it. So what is a healthy relationship? So it's an idea of a healthy relationship with non-threatening behaviour is very important, so that you don't feel threatened in a relationship, any relationship. You should never feel threatened. There should be respect in the relationship, trust and support, honesty, responsible and parenting. That's obviously if it's an older relationship and there's children involved, obviously both parents are providing and kind of sharing responsibility for the child. Economic partnership and fairness. So does anybody think about enough that should be in this that maybe isn't? About love. One of the big ones that's not in it. So with every relationship, and it's okay to have arguments. Arguments can be healthy in a relationship because it means that you have two different points of view and that you are safely allowed to express your opinions. So if there is conflicts and arguments in the relationship, as long as they stay civil and it stays on point with what, so say you're arguing about the dishes aren't done or something, so as long as it stays on point and people aren't throwing in stuff that they already know you don't like about yourself, so using dirty tactics in order to put you down and make you feel lower, as long as you're not screaming and shouting, because that's quite intimidating. So if you ever feel endangered, threatened, intimidated, harassed, fearful, controlled and or manipulated by a partner or someone that you're in a relationship with, these can be signs that your relationship can turn unhealthy and can potentially turn dangerous, can be very dangerous. So the unhealthy cycle, we would call the power and control cycle, because domestic and dating abuse is all about power and control. So when you bring it down to brass tacks, it is solely about power and control. One person has this over the other, so it can be anger, threat, using their social status against you, blaming, peer pressure, social coercion, isolation and intimidation. So some of the signs of an unhealthy relationship. These can be some of the early warning signs as well. So limited independence, humiliation, harassment, intimidation, intensity. So if the relationship's forming too quickly, that can be an early warning sign that maybe something's not right. So if it's gone from like 0 to 100 miles an hour in the first 2 weeks, and you're not seeing your friends and you're spending all your time with your partner, this can be extremely dangerous, because it's isolating you from your support network, it's isolating you from the rest of your family and friends if you're spending all your time with them. And I know at the start of a relationship it's all very exciting and you just want to spend all your time together. You're kind of in the in-love phase and oh God, they're so wonderful, I want to just get to know them. But it's still important that you have your own space and your own independence. Same the likes of violation of your privacy, where people have your passwords, or password to your phone or your Facebook or your emails. That can actually be quite dangerous, because it means that they could be controlling what you're doing, and we'll talk a wee bit more about it later. I don't want to scare you too much, but it is stuff that does happen. In a healthy relationship, as I said, is one person has power and control over the other by influencing what they do and who they see. They can manipulate and control everyone they do, and we'll talk about this a wee bit more later when we're looking at the categories of abuse. So some of the early warning signs, which is important for us to recognise what the early warning signs are. So our body will physically tell us if something doesn't feel right. So has anybody ever got the butterflies in your tummy before an exam? You know something's not sitting well or it doesn't feel right. So it's about paying attention to your body as well. Your body will let you know if something's not right before your head does. So if you've got the butterflies in your tummy or the sweaty hands, or maybe you've just got a headache or you feel a bit dizzy, maybe stopping and double checking with your body, right, okay, why am I feeling like this? I'm not really doing anything. So is it maybe the relationship that's giving me these? We would call them auto signs, and we explain it to children in primary school as auto signs if something doesn't feel right. So if something doesn't feel right, your body will have a way of letting you know as well. So it's about recognising them. Some of the early warning signs, so the abuser won't accept responsibility for any of their actions. They'll always be like, oh, I wouldn't have done if you hadn't have said. So they always put the blame back on the victim or the survivor. So commitment too early on in the relationship, not accepting anything as their fault. They might have anger outbursts, they can be very jealous and very possessive. They can be very disrespectful, they might treat you differently in front of other people. They might try and isolate you from family and friends. It's just a big one. And it mainly starts off with isolation, because if you're isolated from your support network and you have nobody to turn to, you don't know where to go to look for help, you don't know if it's not right. So it is, isolation is a big thing, so it's about keeping your support network open. So emotional abuse and constant put downs as well can be a big thing, because they actually start to attack how you feel about yourself. It's just to give you an idea of where somebody gingerbread man with the auto signs. So this might be some of the signs. Everybody's different, so your body will react differently. So it's about recognising, right, okay, how does my body react? So if the fire alarm went off in school today and you know there wasn't a drill, how would you feel? So are you feeling auto signs? Do you feel like maybe you're in danger? So it's about recognising when you are in a dangerous position, if your body's letting you know. So it can be safer for you to know, so that you can recognise these and you can seek help maybe a wee bit earlier on.
Okay, who are you with? Wait, stop. I hear guys in the background. What's going on? Okay, whatever. Just When are you gonna be home? Well, do you wanna come over? Why not? No, listen, you remember what I said about your parents. They're just trying to control your life. No, I'm just looking out for you. I love you. Hey, if you loved me, you'd be hanging out with me.
Okay, it was only 1 minute long. How does everybody feel about it? It shows how one conversation, a minute long conversation, can switch between, oh, he's so loving and caring, into he can be quite abusive. He's wanting to know where she is, he's telling her family aren't good. So it's about recognising, it's all about boundaries when you bring it down to it. So what will you accept? So it's about recognising where your boundaries are. Like what behaviours are you going to accept in any relationship, and what behaviours you're definitely not going to accept. And making the line. So the same way the line down the middle of the page, you see it's waving back and forward between it. So by recognising where your line is. So, and if it does cross your line, it's okay to kind of end the relationship. If you think it's maybe pushing too many of your boundaries, it keeps you safe. Sorry. These lines are going to be different, and we're all going to accept different behaviours in relationships. But for you personally, it's just an exercise you can do for yourself. What behaviours do you want in any relationship, and what ones you definitely don't want? So we're going to look at a few myths and realities around domestic abuse. So if we can get a show of hands if you agree with it, and then we'll give you the answers afterwards. So teen dating violence rarely happens. Hands up if you agree with this statement. Does anybody agree with it? Okay, very good. That actually does happen. I know this is quite a late study, or from quite a few years ago, but it is still as common today as it ever has been. And 1 in 5, the stats are probably 1 in 4 now. Teenage girls have experienced physical, sexual or emotional abuse by their dating partner. So if there's no physical violence, it's not abuse. Does anybody agree with this? Good, because we have 6 different categories of abuse. We'll talk a wee bit more about it. So it can be verbal, psychological, emotional, financial or sexual abuse. And these are not okay in any relationship, doesn't regardless of age or gender. So alcohol and drugs cause teen dating violence and sexual assault. Does anybody agree with this? Very good, because alcohol and drugs definitely do not cause or are not the result of any dating or domestic abuse. The abuse, it just kind of exacerbates how someone's already feeling, and they're never to be blamed for why the abuse has occurred. It's not a good excuse. Right, so teens experiencing dating violence usually tell a trusted adult. Hands up, does anybody agree with this? Yeah, teens rarely talk to adults about the abuse that they're sustaining, and only 33% told anybody about the abuse. And a lot of them actually told their friends and not a parent or a trusted adult. So some teens like to be abused, and that's why they stay in the relationship. This is actually a question that one of the guys last year out of St. Mark's had said to us. Sure, they like it, that's why they stay. Okay, that's never the excuse, and I know with the likes of 50 Shades of Grey coming on TV and all the books and stuff, it is just to explain nobody likes to be abused. We all have our own limits, we all are, and that's where your lines come in, so your boundaries and behaviours you will and will not accept in a relationship. So no one likes to be abused, manipulated, or controlled. There are many reasons. There's quite a lot of reasons why people stay in abusive or dating and domestic abuse relationships. So maybe it's for the children, maybe they have a boyfriend and it's important to youth status, and maybe they want to feel loved and needed. Maybe they think they can change him, and they're like, oh, he was okay at the start, I want to get back into that phase. And things might be okay, I can help him, he's just not well at the minute. But it is about protecting yourselves. Because these are number one. Like, we're all number one in our own lives, so it is about putting ourselves first, and sometimes that's quite hard, but it is very important. So teen dating violence is just arguing, it's not dangerous like domestic abuse and adult relationships. Does anybody agree with this? No, that's good because dating violence and dating abuse is just as dangerous as domestic abuse. Sometimes it can be very lethal and can result in death. So, because serious physical harm, emotional damage, sexually transmitted diseases, unwanted pregnancies and death, and it can also cause post-traumatic stress disorder and blackouts, which can occur later on in your life. So if you were abused in maybe a relationship when you were 15, this could be something that come back on you when you're 35 or 40. You start getting flashbacks, and maybe you've kind of put it in a box somewhere in the back of your head, and then it finds another way to come out. So it is important that you kind of avail of your support network, and it is important that you do have one and talk to people if something doesn't go right. So does anybody know what the categories of domestic abuse might be? So there's 6 categories. We've added in a 7th one, but we would say there's 6 categories of domestic abuse. Right. Domestic abuse is when someone in a close relationship, and it doesn't have to be a dating relationship, it can be a family relationship, behaves in a way that causes you physical, mental, sexual or emotional damage. It's not solely physical violence. Domestic abuse includes any incidents of threatening behaviour. Can be psychological, physical, financial abuse, emotional or verbal as well. So the categories of domestic abuse. So there's physical, emotional, financial, sexual, verbal, and the use of children. So using children to maybe relay messages, using them as witnesses, or they can be witnesses, maybe questioning their parental skills. So there's different ways that the children can be used or almost used as weapons. And that actually can be quite hard for, I know we only solely deal with women and children. Doesn't mean that abuse doesn't happen to men either, but attacking parents' parental skills in front of the children can actually be very damaging later on to the family unit. So we've added in cyber abuse and bullying, because we actually feel this is quite a big thing at the moment. Have you done a cyber abuse week or a bullying week in school? Yeah, great. We will talk a little bit more about cyber abuse later. But we'll go through some of the other ones now. So what is physical abuse? It's just to give you an idea of, it can be anything, everything, spitting, throwing objects beside you. It doesn't actually have to, so if I throw an object, the intent of the threatening behaviour was there. So my intent was to scare you, so that could be, we would say that still is physical abuse. So the likes of drowning or stabbing, using objects, scalding, suffocating. These are only a few. There's so many different, if you just think of the different ways that people can physically abuse you. So what would all the effects of all this be on a person? So the effects might be, so it can be anything from cuts to bruises to anger, pain. There's always going to be emotional with any kind of abuse. There's always emotional underlying. So there's always the constant put downs as well. So the anger as well, so, and emotional problems. So if you've been maybe drowned, then you can have flashbacks from that as well, so it will affect you emotionally. So emotional abuse is always going to be underlying at the every form of any other abuse, if that makes sense. So what is emotional abuse? It would be anything from teasing your capabilities, shouting at you, blackmailing you, degrading behaviour, criticising you, constantly putting you down, ignoring you, giving you silent treatment, constantly questioning you, and embarrassing you in front of other people. This can be done, again, we'll talk about it a wee bit more later, online. So maybe they're embarrassing you on Facebook as well, and that can still be very unhealthy. So when you take all this into it, what are the effects of a person? So if all this is happening to somebody, how do you think that's impacting on them? Do you think they're going to feel good about themselves? No. So you'll have lower self-esteem, you'll have lower self-confidence, start to question yourself and doubt what, am I going crazy? Is that something that I've done? Or maybe I am too sensitive or overreacting. This is where it goes back to listen to your body. The auto signs in your body, it'll tell you if it doesn't feel right. You might feel suicidal, you might have trust issues, it could come back on you later on in life as well. So it's important that you talk to people. So what is financial abuse? People think this isn't actually as bad as it is. There was, just going to give you an example of a story. So there was a family that had used our services in the past, and at the end of, say, every Friday, her husband would come home, and depending on what his mood was, he would decide how much money he would hide around the house and how long the family had to go and look for it. So there was, he gave them 1 minute one day, and next week he might give them 5 minutes. So he's put them all into the living room till he runs around and hides the money. After 1 minute, or whatever he felt like giving them that day, he would say that's enough, so whatever money you have is all you have for the week, and he would leave them with that. So financial abuse can be extremely serious. It can also mean that you can seek support. If you think about it, if you're living in a rural area, then you might be able to seek support. If you've no money for the bus or no money for a taxi, maybe you don't have a phone, you might have any way to leave. So financial abuse is very, very serious. And if they have all the benefits in their name as well, it can actually be very hard for a woman to leave and try and set up the benefits and get them back in her name. It's quite a lengthy process. And it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for a national insurance number alone to come through. There are a few people that if they've come over from a different country or if they've moved up from down south, they're relying on charity for the first couple of weeks until they get their benefits in order for them to be able to even go seek a job. Because they can't go and seek employment if they don't have a national insurance number. So they really are on their own. They've no money. So when you think of what you need money for, it's one of your basic human rights to be able to provide shelter and clothes and heating and food. If you don't have any money, it's very hard to provide those things.
How would you say women's aid has become more accessible to these women and families if they're living in rural areas, if they have no mobile phone, if they weren't getting money to travel in and access? How would you
We
say
have floating our outreach services. So we have outreach services in Keele and South Armagh. So we do try and go a wee bit further into rural areas. So people, if they can get travel or maybe they'll be able to walk to the centre. So we maybe do a drop-in service once a week. We also have different posters in the back of bathroom toilets, so we're trying to get the word out there. There's a lot of campaigns around telly at the moment with Hollyoaks and Coronation stores that kind of let you know if domestic abuse or if it's sexual abuse or dating abuse, and they'll give you the helpline numbers. So it's about maybe the helpline number. Our helpline number at the minute is 24 hours a day, and it is manned by trained counsellors and support workers that are specifically trained in dealing with domestic and sexual violence. Our helpline number at the minute is free phone from both mobile and from landline, so we're trying to get it out that way. Our website page, there's a panic button on it, so if you're looking at it on the website and you press the panic button, it'll shoot you over to, if maybe someone's walking into the room and you didn't want them to know you're looking at a women's aid site, the button directs you straight back to Google or to BBC News, so it directs you somewhere else, and it actually clears it off your history, which is important because that could be quite dangerous for people as well.
Yeah, and as well as like women who are in serious danger at that point that have found the helpline, and like I say, without the money, we actually pay for the taxis to actually get them out of where they are as well.
Yeah.
So that's part of.
We might phone the police or the helpline might be able to link in with the police and get them to go and help them. So the effects of financial abuse, so yeah, as I said, you might be able to leave a relationship, you could be in debt, non-management, bad credit, physical and emotional health issues, and homelessness. So you could be put out of your home or maybe you had to leave, which is a big thing. So the helpline number would be able to direct you to all the refuges in Northern Ireland and tell you which ones have space. They might contact the refuge themselves and say, right, okay, have you got any space for a single woman or a woman with 3 children? And if we don't have any space, we don't leave her just sitting there. So if we don't have any space to accommodate a woman with 3 children, we'll phone the other refuges as well. We'll try and link in with different resources. So something in Zurich and the one in Belfast, Sisters in Mercy. So we'll link in with different refuges that maybe aren't affiliated with Women's Aid and see if they'd still be able to get support. So we would never leave someone without for them having somewhere safe to go. And if there's children involved, then social services by right have a duty of care to get the children sorted. So sometimes social services have put the women and children up in bed and breakfast until there was space available, either in temporary accommodation or sheltered accommodation for them. So the children would always be looked after. So sexual abuse, so it can be anything from taking photos and posting it up online. So taking photos and videos of you without knowing and sharing it with other people, be pressuring you into being sexual, asking for sex in return for favours, being forced to watch someone being sexual, rape, unwanted touching. There's many different ways sexual abuse can be perpetrated upon a person. So the effects of all this on the person, you're obviously going to have lower self-esteem, unlike cuts and wounds or unwanted pregnancies, maybe STDs. It's gonna have an impact on your emotional. This is actually the Hollyoaks video. Sorry. So try and see what categories of abuse you see. This is on TV at the minute.
So did you win at football then?
Yeah, of course we did.
Because you're the best?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so.
So, do you want a bit of fun before your parents get back?
Doing what?
You know, just a bit of fun.
No, let's just watch this.
Oh, come on. I'll tell everyone you're frigid.
Well, why would you do that?
Well, you basically are being now.
Well, no, not really, because we've already done it.
Yeah, but you said we would tonight. Then you dragged me over here, now you say it's not happening.
Let's just watch this, alright? I don't want my mum's going to be back. No, I don't want it. No, I don't want it.
How about a cuddle?
What always happens at the end of a cuddle?
Well, who's that?
Nicole.
Oh, you and your mates.
What are you doing?
That's your fault, that.
I've only just got this.
Don't talk to me like that. And anyway,
Why are you talking to Nicole? You know I don't like her.
So I'm not even allowed friends now.
Oh, honest, you mate.
Get out of the room, you humiliate me.
look at you. You're pathetic.
Please, can you just let go of me, alright? No, I'll do it.
You're gonna have to put some work in to get me ready now. Well, go on then. Show me something.
Has anybody seen that ad on telly? Yeah. How does everybody feel after watching it? Can anybody pick out the categories of abuse she's been through? Physical, yeah. He threw her phone, he's grabbing her by the hair. And the emotional, where he's screaming at her and telling her he doesn't like her friends, he's trying to isolate her. And then sexual, where he's trying to force her into being sexual. She doesn't want to do it. She said no to start with. And he's pressuring her into doing it, and then he turns physical towards the end. So it's important to try and recognise the signs as well, and how to overcome it. So the effects of sexual abuse on a person can give you, again, post-traumatic stress disorder, flashbacks, embarrassment, self-harm. You might feel good about yourself afterwards. You think your only way out is maybe to self-harm, to release whatever built up emotions are in. Again, talking to people, very important. There is other resources out there if you've been sexually abused. So the domestic and sexual abuse helpline number, and also Nexus is very good with helping people that have been sexually abused, or the Rowan Centre. If you've been raped, then the Rowan Centre will be able to help you try and take whatever evidence is left. They'll also offer counselling and stuff as well, like in the police. They'll help you to make a statement to the police if you want to bring it forward. So it is very important if you've experienced this, you do speak about it. Definitely talk to somebody about it, even if it is a helpline. The helpline, you don't have to give your name or number, so it can be completely anonymous, but it's important that you get it off your chest and just talk about it. Abuse is apparent. We're just going to skim through this really quickly. But so it could be anything from using the children to pass messages through, maybe using the children to control them, criticising their parental skills in front of people, getting the children to join in on the abuse is a big one, and turning the children completely against the parent by telling them they're stupid, and by using words like that in front of the children, and the children pick that up and they could be saying that back to the parent. So the effects of this on the parent. So obviously again, bringing the emotions, lower self-esteem, lower self-confidence, you might feel depressed. Lots of respect in the family. Maybe the children don't respect you. You might develop anxiety or you might be unable to leave because of the children. That's quite a big thing, is people don't leave a domestic abuse relationship because of the children, because they think it's stable for a child to have two parents, and it's stable for a child to be in a safe environment and not put up with screaming and physical abuse. But maybe they rely on people for dependence, for support. So we've already talked about why people stay in relationships. So it can be from the children. Maybe they don't have the financial resources to leave. Maybe they don't know that there is support available for them out there. Maybe they think they're crazy. We've had a lot of cases come in before where if the woman's on medication, maybe the abuser's kind of prescribing the medication to her, giving her it. So he'll say, oh, she already took your medication today. And he goes, do you not remember when I brought you that cup of tea and breakfast in bed? So she remember getting a cup of tea and breakfast in bed. And she kind of looked at it and go, maybe I did take my pills at the same time. And maybe doesn't remember. So we would usually do this if there's like a parent-teacher conference coming up, or if there's social service meeting. So it's quite skillful when he does it, when he plays about with her medication. He may withhold her medication completely when it's coming up to times like this, or he might give her too much. So, oh, you didn't take your pills today, take them again. So he's controlling, and she believes him because she thinks, oh, he's looking out for me, and so she mightn't actually say it's emotional abuse at that stage or physical abuse. She might want to keep the family together. They're hopeful that things might get better. Okay. Have you got any question around domestic abuse? I know you want to know what Women's Aid do and how we help. So if you've got any specific questions before I just rattle on again.
So guys, you're coming up to near the end of the class time, so if there's any further questions that you want to know, particularly know those some questions in the access or how the organisation helps, or even in terms of meals who might be victims, and a Women's Aid might not necessarily be able to help, but how do you support in a situation like that, or anything else, girls, that you
So with male victims, our helpline number is open to both. I know Women's Aid obviously solely only for women, but doesn't mean that people haven't phoned our offices before. Males looking for advice. There is a Men's Aid in Belfast. There's only one in Northern Ireland, and it is situated in Belfast. But the stats on male abuse is 1 in 8, 1 in 9, whereas women is 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So the stats for women are higher, but then again it looks at things like males don't report it. There's stigma with males reporting domestic abuse, and especially to the police. There's still stigma, not all women report it either, but males are less likely to report. But our helpline number offers advice to both males and females, and the offices. We would never turn anybody away, phone our offices looking for help. We would always signpost them with someone that might be able to help them. Any other questions?
How long do you usually accommodate families for?
Every family is different, so there's people that have come in for a couple of weeks, a couple of days, there's people that have been in 2 years. We're very much an empowering service, so we'll always help them try and find accommodation to move forward. So in Refuge, we take them in, we'd help them fill out, get some of their benefits in place so that they're able to move on. We might go to housing executive appointments with them to see where their points are situated, and try and find out the best area if they have children, try and get the kids into school, and see if they can rebuild their lives for themselves. So in order to get a housing executive house, you could be waiting 6, 8 months, a year, depending on the area you're going for.
And sometimes as well, when they're in that long, they'll have court cases and stuff that they have to attend, and they need extra support around all that. So they'll actually stay in the refuge until they feel ready enough to stand on their own 2 feet again.
Some people, when they leave a domestic abuse relationship, they actually thought it was safer in the relationship because they knew where he was. They knew, right, okay, he comes home from work at this time, he's going to be here, he'll do this. So when they were in the house with him, they knew he was there. When they left, they didn't know where he was. Was he watching her around the corner? Was he stalking her somewhere else? Was he following her? So they actually felt more in danger leaving, and that's why our refuge in Newry is very secure. We've got big gates, it's all coded. everyone's got their individual rooms, so there's a lot of codes to get into the building itself. It's always at least one staff member in at all times. There are refuges manned 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Just gives the women and children that extra sense of security. Any other questions?
So maybe finally, is there any restrictions that you feel based on you as an organisation that is, as a professional, frustrates you in any way, things that you ever feel you can't do enough of, or?
That's quite a tough question. Sometimes it's trying to get other people on board, or at least believe in the woman's story. We're a non-judgmental organisation. We take people at face value, and it's about maybe there was an incident actually that occurred within the last 2 years where the housing executive had phoned us and says, don't take this woman in. She's messing up with her husband's benefits and she does this all the time. She's just not well. We've actually known the woman for quite some years. We were like, no, there's actually quite a lot of physical abuse, but he had phoned the housing executive and jobs and benefits and groomed them almost, and played this big sob story about how he just wanted to keep himself right and he didn't want any kind of uplift in his life. So he groomed different services. So they came to us saying, I can't believe you're doing this. And we're like, you don't know the story, you're listening to one side. So we find that a lot with social services and health visitors and stuff, that you're trying to go out and say, look, this is real, this has happened, this is what she's been through. But it's just, if he's been there and was able to groom them before, we've been able to talk to them. It can be very hard and very challenging. In some cases have been thrown out of courts because of the child courts officer had been groomed beforehand, and didn't really listen to the woman's story at all, didn't really ask the children any questions. So it was actually very difficult in that situation.
Ladies and gentlemen, both Sinead and Anush, a very big round of applause.